A really common issue that we might have with a routed port on a switch is that it's not really a routed port. We neglected to convert it from a switch port to a routed port. In fact, if we go try to apply an IP address to a regular switch port, we're not allowed to do that. That's not going to be a recognized command. The way we convert something from a switch port to a routed port, as we just demonstrated, is we go into interface configuration mode and we simply say no switch port. At that point, we are able to give the IP address command. We would not be allowed to do it before we gave that command, but now we can give the IP address command. But another issue that can crop up is we give an IP address that's part of the wrong subnet. We need to be careful with that. We need to look at our design documentation and make sure that we're assigning an appropriate IP address. If we have a symptom of somebody on this VLAN cannot get to somebody on this VLAN and we're using a routed port, one thing we might want to do, by the way, the ping would be the test to see that that's happening. What we might want to do is go in and do a show interfaces followed by the interface identifier followed by the keyword of switchport like we did live earlier, and that will tell us if we're enabled for switchport operation or not. If we are, and the design document tells us that we're supposed to be using a routed port, that right there could be the issue. How do we fix that? Well, we've already talked about going in and saying we want to do no switch port to make it into a routed port, but once we do that, we need to assign an appropriate IP address. We treat this like a router interface. We go into interface configuration mode, and just like we would on a router interface, we do IP address and IP space address, then we give the IP address followed by the subnet mask. And that's the way that we can assign an IP address to a routed port on a switch.